All right. So here we are again for our
Good
second
morning.
edition of our Advent series. So we're taking a deeper dive this week into peace. So perhaps we've lit the candle for peace in our homes or at church, or we've followed along with this booklet, The Sweetest Christmas. And as we're entering this second week of Advent, the theme is peace, and every message this week is centered around peace and a deeper understanding of how we cultivate this awareness of peace. So, thank you for being part of our journey. We love doing this, myself and Reverend Janice Carey. And, this experience blesses us as much as it blesses you, hopefully. So, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Julia. It's great to share this, have this experience with you. And yeah, the quality we're really talking about today is peace. And isn't it interesting that it's a spiritual quality that I have really just used this morning because everything that could have happened did
Yes.
in the midst of trying to get here with you. And I got gutter guys out there putting new gutters on, and all is good. All is good. But it's just the busy. And this person wants this and someone else. And, it's being able to live in the midst of the hustle and the bustle from a state of peace. I mean, and yet we've got
Going
to
with the flow.
go with the flow, but we got to connect with it. Exactly. And that's like, that comes to me with just taking a few breaths, centering.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, becoming aware of presence. And
Mhm.
it is as vital as it is to brush my teeth, to
Yeah.
prepare for the day, to prepare my consciousness for the day.
I've heard the term spiritual hygiene before,
Oh, I like that.
and you just reminded me of it.
Yeah, it's spiritual hygiene. Yes.
Mhm.
I like that. It's spiritual hygiene. And, I've heard it things like radical self care, radical self kindness.
Yeah.
And we cannot be kind or peaceful to someone else until we're coming from that space.
Yeah.
So we got to get in it
Oh,
first.
that's really big. Yeah. You want to be the peacemaker. How can we contribute peace to others, peace in the world, unless we first are peaceful within and of ourselves?
And you just hit on something this is what's so good about these conversations. It draws something up. We're to be the peacemakers, right? But that doesn't mean the ego will hear fixing a problem, making it
True.
okay between two people. When what we're saying is we bring the possibility of being at peace in the midst of a challenge,
Yeah.
the sacred ground of being.
Yeah.
Because the ego are when I say ego, I'm certainly not putting it in a negative turn either. The ego is our conditioning that we've learned. And so it ought to be a certain way, it ought to look a certain way, you ought to do a certain thing. You said this, you said that. And this is the titan, the clash, right?
Yes.
And
Because, yes.
we bring a spaciousness for that clash to be noticed. Because the minute it noticed, it's let's go.
Yes. And that what the ego does, or that monkey mind, that silly
Yeah.
voice, you
That
know, it
humanness of us.
it does. It wants to it put a condition on peace, right? Like I'll experience peace when fill in the blank.
Exactly. We're equating the ego, our human self. Let me say my human self
Right.
equates peace with everything, all my ducks lining up.
Right. And how we can lose our peace in circumstances where, and we're really like stuck to things have to be a certain way. And just like, we have our plan today in what we're doing. And then all of a sudden life happens and we can't get where we need to be on time, or we can't, or whatever it is. But is that gonna, you're at choice there? Are
Yeah,
those
yeah,
circumstances going to run you to the point where you lose your peace, or can we remain centered even when things aren't going exactly how we imagined, envisioned, or planned?
right. And I like what Teresa says on here on page 27. Peace,
Oh, yeah.
just like every other aspect of spiritual living, is an inside job.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's we're not talking about peace other than our inner peace, our
Yeah.
inner awareness that we can face everything centered
Right.
in peace.
Right. That's so good. And, I think she just makes such a good point because, you know, if we want to live in peace, like in that, and I think deep down that is the deep wanting. So whenever there's a feeling, and this might be a tool that we can use this week, but if you feel like you have to have something, or you want something, or you need more of something, or, it could be things, it could be relationship stuff, whatever it is, right? To stay with that until you go to like the deeper truth of what it is you really want in truth. And I think most of the time we all want peace.
Right, right.
And that's
And
where we end up. Like that's really what's underlying. And then it's noticing that there's nothing out there to get that will give you peace. There's nothing where you can look for it everywhere else, but the moment you turn within to find it within yourself, it
uh-huh.
calms all of those external kind of the ego thinking, I need to have this in order to get, I need to have this in order to get. It just stops that.
It goes from, you've heard of time. It takes you out of time. It takes you out of uh, Chronos time, which is the talk, click, 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 clock is ticking, puts you
Mhm.
into Kairos time. The
Ooh,
Kairos time is at the time of being and growing and blooming, nature, natural kind of thing. And also, what she says here is each year we celebrate Jesus' birth, the new
mhm.
life brought into the world under the humblest of conditions. So when we are in a situation that seems impossible,
Daunting. Yeah.
challenging,
Yeah.
daunting,
Hmm.
impossible, we can't do anything, we can't fix it, there's nothing. We breathe, and there's a place of peace to hold it all.
Yeah.
You surrender the need to change the outer condition, and
Yeah.
you're with whatever is unfolding. And oh man, it's the
But,
humbling.
I feel like that a lot in parenting, in my role as a parent. Sometimes I feel like the practice of witnessing, what your child goes through in their journey and their growth process, instead of being so, you know, covering or directly, managing it's and letting them have their emotions, anything that they go through. It's being the witness to that is so sacred and creates space and then cultivates peace ultimately, because it's a very it's a way of being, right? It's a
Right.
way of being with somebody where you don't feel that you have to interject, where you're really allowing and surrendering and allowing them to have their experience. Because, even with my child, who am I to deny this soul's unfolding and having their own experience?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So you're right. These teachings are a new way of life, and if we did walk this path the way, you know, or Buddha would have called it the eightfold path, or because these are truths of any tradition.
Yeah.
If we walked that path, there is much more possibility of being more outer peace.
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
I
because
think right. And it's when we're always talking about cultivating from within, it's because our experience of the external starts within. It's like from within out. So,
yes, yes,
it's changing the mindset that there's the world out there and then there's me and the world's happening to me, right?
right, right,
Two,
right.
peace begins within me, and just like a projector onto a movie screen is how I'm doing my life, that I project the peace that I see in the world. Like
Mhm.
truly, that's how it works, not things happen where to give me peace or take my peace. It's me. It's peace begins with me. Um,
Yes.
I don't know. Reverend Teresa's she said with a commitment and practice will be the peaceful presence we have been praying for no matter the situation. So I was kind of wondering, that's a big thing that she says with commitment, because I'm almost like, I wish she would have expanded on that a little bit. Like commitment to what? Like what? Right. We can all be committed to peace, but I think
Yeah.
that's different for everybody because, if I know that there's a situation or something that happens in my life that's a peace drain or a stealer of peace. So my commitment may be to centering myself in that situation or
Yeah.
neutralizing that in however way that I can. Or
Well,
the
I'm reading
commitment
this as, with commitment and practice is about staying in our heart space.
and prayer and meditation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
staying in
Yeah.
that, because that leads us to our ability to accept what is.
Yeah.
That's the commitment is to, because the minute we get into here, into our head, we're analyzing and judging and condemning and complaining, all of that. So to me, it's the commitment to be the witness, back to being the light. And that's what's born in us, the Christ, the light.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the promise. And on the next page, one of the greatest promises of Christmas is that the coming of the Christ will bring peace on earth, goodwill to all. Well, it does,
Yeah.
individually,
Mhm.
one heart at a time, you
Yeah.
know?
That's the gift that's within us. That is
Yeah.
the gift of the Christ presence within us that we open and experience that. And it's a choice too. That's
Yes. And our inner light guides our feet onto the path of peace.
Mhm.
And it becomes the state of our consciousness. So, isn't that nice?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And and I like how you kind of said, like, we can get into a state of analyzing and kind of talking ourselves out of things. All of that happens. And she brings it together, on this, Reverend Lori. This is the peace that surpasses understanding, or the peace that passes all understanding. So whenever that term, for me, that comes to me a lot in prayer when I'm leading meditation, the peace that passes all understanding, because it is getting away from needing to intellectualize. It's kind of getting beyond, I see the intellect in this way as one of almost like the five senses that we transcend when we enter the space of peace, because you can't understand your way into it. Hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. You cannot, I always say it this way: God is not rational.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's got nothing
I
to
like
do
that.
with rationality. Right, 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 right. But I do like this word on here on page 29. She says, he says, John Connor
Reverend
writes,
John.
yeah, peace is the first word Jesus spoke to greet his friends after the resurrection. So if we take that in us for a moment, when we come out of the tomb of our darkness, when we've gone through a challenging situation, the very first thing that we begin to feel is peace. I say something like, man, I feel like myself right now. I feel more like myself right now than I
Mhm.
have for a while. going through what I've gone through, the loss, but when I say I feel like myself right now, it means that I'm really feeling a sense of peace.
Yeah.
My normal, my set point, my center point,
That's a
peace.
good place to be. That's a
Yes.
good feeling to have.
Yeah.
And you know
But
what
I've
it feels
come,
like when you move away from it's like when you're back to center. It's just such a relief.
yeah, that's
And
center.
that's yeah, I mean I know I've been sick with worry before. I personally have had that experience of feeling
Oh,
sick with worry where things happen in my body that are out of whack because I'm not centered in peace, that I have a thought of, of something troubling. And I've experienced that before in my life. So I think probably everybody has, and then it's just, okay, I can't exist like this anymore. That's
yeah,
what
yeah,
happens is it either gets like to the point where, okay, I surrender it. I surrender it, give it to
right.
God and completely surrender that to get back to center, to get back to yourself, because that
Yeah,
state of being, that's not yourself. It's not a feeling of perfect health, whole, healthy, complete, which we are. That's our truth. That's who we are, and that's what we get to
that's
through
our whole
this.
self. Yeah, I
That's
agree.
our whole self.
I
Yeah.
wonder that's why they call it centering prayer.
Yes. Yeah. I know. And then the centering prayer, I love the quote in here, which I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen this before. So I think this is probably just Reverend John and not maybe not a Fillmore, but he, he talks about floating past intruding thoughts in a practice called centering prayer to consent to the presence of the divine in you. So I like that wording, to consent to the presence, because again, we're at choice, and when we kind of recognize that we're losing our peace, instead of beating ourselves up about it and saying, "Oh, I've been doing all my spiritual practices, I shouldn't be feeling this way, and I've been in unity for decades, and why is this happening?" What always happens, the good thing is, because we have our practices, we can be aware when we lose our peace, because otherwise it would just be automatic and you wouldn't even have the awareness of it. It would just be how your life is. So when you have the awareness of it, that's the gift, because that's the moment. That's what your spiritual practice has led you to the awareness, so that you can choose. And will you consent to the presence of the divine in you? That's where it puts you at choice. So you can
Yeah,
continue on in your giving away your power and your peace to your external circumstances, or in that same moment where you're aware of that, you choose to consent to the presence. So that just really that brought it home for me a lot.
I love it. I love it. I like where Reverend Karen Romstan says Advent calls us to the deep inner peace, which that is realized as the tranquility of conscious connection to our divine truth.
Wow, yeah. The
And
tranquility of conscious connection.
yeah, yeah. We find that depth with our intent. See, that's our when we can really realize there's only one relationship. This is kind of Unity 404, but when there is only ever one relationship, and it's with our higher self. And when we're in our higher self peers out upon other aspects of our higher self.
Yeah.
There's only the one relationship, but I do know that's kind of esoteric.
That's great. And it's a deep truth. And if we
Yeah.
can cultivate that awareness that kind of like is every person, that what that is it develops a true compassion, because then when you're with someone, you don't just look at them, see them, but you see in them that which is also me. That
Yes,
that
exactly.
it's a
Yeah.
different level of connection and having a very direct experience of life.
It reminds me, and the only way you can do that is, our Unity emblem is of the earth and the wings, or the
Yeah,
bird, right? Or the dove, the
right.
bird.
You
But you're
love and
rising
wisdom.
above the gravity of the earth, the
Mm,
graveness of
mm,
problems, on wings of love and wisdom. So you're
yes.
seeing it from the perspective of knowing this is going to pass. So will everything that's on the horizon. Horizontal level passes. But that which never passes is that which is on the vertical level, the I amness of our being, the sovereignty of our being, the Christness of our being, the I amness of our being.
Yeah. No
Yeah, yeah.
beginning and no end.
No
Um,
beginning.
I'm I talk a lot about Stephen Levine. He's one of my favorite authors. And he works a lot with, he's passed now, but he worked a lot with people who are dying, and a lot of his writing is about death and dying, which turns out that it's a key to living. Just the whole thing is like really accepting death and dying is the big wake up call to start living your life in a way where you're expressing Christ fully. But
Yeah.
without getting into all that, Stephen has these amazing, um, I don't know, meditations and, well, I guess I don't really want to get into all of that, but it just kind of reminded me of him. He's just kind of
Yes.
speaking to me right now. And just like, you know, I think the thing that I would share about what he says is that his point is that we're eternal beings, right? Without beginning and without end. And in the grand scheme of being an eternal being, 80 years or 100 years is like 8 seconds, it's like 10 seconds in the grand scheme of what we really are. So when we have something that feels so heavy, if you can kind of center into that, it just instantly takes it away. It becomes very trivial. So you really, in your 8 seconds as an eternal being of having this experience on earth, do you really have time to hold a grudge with somebody? Do you really have time, to create conflict? Do you really have time? Or, it, you know, is your time here to cultivate your heart's desires, and show compassion and live in peace? Because that's it. It goes in the blink of an eye.
Right.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So I like the way it says in here, the greatest gift we can give each other is the gift of peace. Because I think that the gift of peace is also the gift of unconditional acceptance. Because we're very peaceful
Yeah.
when we're not attached or trying to change things.
That it and it's kind of like a knowing that that stuff doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, none of that matters. It's all good. It's all God. That's a hard
Yeah.
thing to say because it doesn't on a level of the, when somebody says it's all good, it's all good, it's all God. Yeah, and yes, and because on the level of the world, we need to be compassionate and understanding, and things happen. But at the level
Yeah.
of the absolute truth, it's all good. Yeah. So there are the different levels of understanding that can then play into that. So, and
Yeah.
like it says on the Friday one, Reverend Lucette, Jesus was born in a time of great turmoil. Has there not been a time of great turmoil
Right.
in the world? In the world, you
Always.
know, is the world is what the world does, right? And until that we awaken to the light of the Christ within us, or the Buddha nature of our being, um, we are totally in the story and the dramas and the traumas.
Hmm. Yes. And I believe that, everyone that is here, is quote unquote, and like, chose to be here, but is whoever is incarnated now. If you are here now, we are here now. We are fully equipped and designed to and meant to handle all the things that are happening now. There's not like you're out of place. You shouldn't have been here. Like everyone is here at this perfect time and perfect moment in their soul journey, meant to
Yeah.
be here, meant to be experiencing whatever it is that is going on now. And, it's so important to be, if, especially when we're talking to our congregations, to our friends, to really these the light bearers, right, of the
Mhm.
world, like you're meant to be here now. And that
Yes,
the like don't ever think that, sharing your gift of peace, right, is like an insignificant thing because
right,
for every like 10,000 negative things that happen, you bringing your light and peace just that one time is more powerful than all those 10,000 other things. Like
right.
that's how powerful we are. And we're meant to be here, this perfect place and time. And
Yes.
it's the peace, it's bringing the peace and just not forgetting that the power of peace is like you have the backing of, the Christ of the universe all behind you, all of that to support you in this expression.
And Advent for us too is, I know we look at it out there as the story, and it's a beautiful perennial story, but it's the true meaning for us is the advent of our walking in the world from our own Christ consciousness. I mean, it really is about self care, self
Mhm.
uh, being centered, um, radical self kindness, so you can express those qualities to others.
Yeah.
But we have to have them in order to give them, you know? So this is what we are preparing ourselves to give birth to our Prince of Peace, our Princess of Peace,
Hmm.
to that quality of life where we're not letting our hearts be troubled.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a journey, and peace is
Yes.
a path. It's a path to that realization, that understanding that it's like you still everything in peace to this place of calm, tranquility, calming the mind, peace of mind. So important. And that's like that's the path that like really opens the heart because the more that we have going on that's pulling our attention, and there's so many things out there that fight for our attention and want to grab our and hook us. And I like the word hook us because it's almost like more
Yeah.
violent, to like take you from your center. But it's like it really peace is that place that allows us to kind of go beyond the mind and go into wisdom, go to that deep inner understanding and wisdom, and cultivating that awareness, that true connection, that inseparability, that we're not separate from God, that we are an expression of that we have, this capacity to express God and good into the world, and that's actually what we are doing all the time.
Yes. And sometimes we don't necessarily know it until we're in a really challenging situation. And all of a sudden we're wondering, my God, how did I walk through that? And we
Yeah.
might reflect on it. And yet we
Yep.
did. We did. I'm liking that one story about the king who asked for a portrait that most shared peace, what it looked like, what it
Mm.
peace looked like, or what it meant. And these artists went out and looked for these paintings, and one was of a beautiful, serene lake, and one was of a beautiful, serene, field, and one was of a storm, real stormy lake with a lot of lightning and hail, and in the corner of in the grotto and deep in the rock was a mother bird holding her babe,
Aw.
and the king chose that one because that represented the peace. And that's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't help us to not be in peace in the midst of chaos, because we're not making the wisest choices when we're not in a state of peace.
Yeah. 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 I think it's just you know when you're around somebody who is centered in peace, they're a joy to be around. They're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
pleasant, and it just feels good. So why not be that
Why not
person
choose? Right.
in
Yeah.
your family? Why not be that person in your community? Why not be that person that, it's so good to you can just tell it's like a magnet because that's what I want to experience. Like,
Well,
and
you
that
remember
person
like
is like, how do I
as
get
a
some of
child.
that? And you
Yeah.
invite them to unity.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a child, you remember I remember, the excitement of Christmas, really.
Yeah.
And yes, it was toys and it was this and that, but there was such love involved in it as well.
Yes.
And being
Yeah.
with family, but the anticipation and can we anticipate that we can be that peaceful, that
Yeah.
present? Can we be so excited that we are not of the world? We are in the world, but we
Yeah.
are God's child. We are God's beloved sons and daughters.
Mhm.
That's a real awakening to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
I think that's it. That's it. It's like those, and those memories that you're talking about that we've created over the years around Christmas. It's like in those moments where time has stopped, the rest of the world has fallen away, and you're just in the joy and the peace of experiencing and having your experience, whatever it is that you created.
yeah. I mean, I remember when my daughter was 18 months old and being held by her dad, and she must have been younger than that, must have been about 15 or 14 months old, and being held by her dad and seeing her first Christmas tree. She was like, the lights, and my grandson Evan, when he was a little guy, he would say, "Christmas, Christmas, lights."
Oh,
I mean, that's what sticks.
oh my gosh, yes. I remember when like the year that Grace started walking. And she would walk up to the Christmas tree, and I had a lot of candy ornaments on the tree. They weren't real candy. They were just like the plastic that looked like, Christmas lollipops and things. And she would go up to the tree and start putting them in her mouth. Like,
Yeah. Oh, I want to eat that. That's
yeah,
fine.
she's like trying to lick
Yeah.
the lollipop. I'm like, that's plastic.
Yeah.
This is, remember things.
But that's it. And as it says here on December 16, which is Carolyn, Reverend Carolyn,
Yes.
I can't say her last name.
Oh, Warnamont, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
She says, I breathe deeply and go into that place within where the peace of Christ always lives.
Hmm.
I breathe slowly and consciously feel myself relaxing and returning to peace. Peace is my birthright. And that's back to we always have to choose it. We're always having to choose.
That's the practice too. It's breathing into.
The challenges, breathing into it. I think Deepak Chopra wrote a book, Peace is the Way.
Yeah,
That is the way. We want to walk in peace. Doesn't mean stuff
absolutely.
around us isn't happening, but we want to respond from a place where we are aligned with spirit, knowing
Yeah,
we are spirit. We are love incarnate, and that's our Christmas gift. We are
that's
love incarnate, expressing. So,
that's beautiful. That's it.
yeah. So, my peace I give you is the Christ peace, the
Mhm.
Christos, the light. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not as the world gives, but I give you my peace.
yeah.
Yeah. So, well, this was
Very
beautiful.
beautiful.
Again,
Yes,
it was to me, it was a meditation.
yes.
It was
And just
informative. And I have a lot of banging going on because I'm getting gutters.
I
So,
didn't even hear it. I think we're gonna be fine.
oh, yeah. Yeah. It's
It,
just, well, I was
yeah,
in the peace of it.
yeah, yeah. So it's good. Everyone, the doggy laid peacefully at my feet while we were talking. So
Well, my dog wants to come up again. So maybe I'll
very
let
sweet.
I'll let Chloe come up
Make
and
a
say
cameo to say
Merry
hi to
Christmas and
everyone.
have a peaceful have a peaceful week.
Have a peaceful week, everyone. We will see you for week 3. Bye.